Well, would you look at that? The president of the country has made a U-turn. Again. Byron, what's the U-turn about?
Oh, we did a video last week around the President of the Republic saying to South Africans that he really cared very little about their cost of living increases. And he was like, ministers also have cost of living increases. So we'll just make everything that they have to pay for free. And that way they won't have any cost of living increases. Well, it wasn't just us who moaned about it. Our videos all got a number of views. The Institute of Racial Relations did a comment on it. AfriForum did a comment on it. We did a comment on it. The president has actually amended his own amendment and said he's now not going to basically give all the perks away for free. Yet again, another example of people saying, mate, you're a bit of a dick. Do you really think you should do this? And it actually had a good positive result.
Well, is it positive if the president does flip-flop, right? Because I don't think this is positive. Like, I would love for the president to give us the two fingers and say, fuck you, I don't give a shit. It's my prerogative. Like, then I would respect him for that. But he flip-flops on this as well. So, I mean, it's good that ministers aren't being funded by the taxpayer as much as before, sure thing. But at the end of the day, it just shows how weak Ramaphosa actually is as an individual, which is not a surprise by any means, but makes him less respectable than before. Because if I was very certain about myself and I gave my ministers all sorts of perks, I would just stand by it. Because they are far more important than any public outrage. These are the people that will, make sure that you get elected again at the elective conference later this year. And he's quite willing to throw them under the bus because of public outrage.
I think Ramaphosa is in a difficult position though, right? I mean, in one respect, he needs to make sure the ANC gets voted in again in 2024. And let's face it, no one actually believes those guys anymore. Another respect, he needs to get voted in at November 2022 at his elective conference. And nobody likes him. So he's like, what do I do? Do I keep the ANC happy? Do I keep the public happy? That kind of dichotomy that he finds himself in is actually part of the problem. And that's the reason he gave these ministerial benefits in the first place. Because I was like, okay, I need all of the cabinet ministers on my side. I know what I'll do. I'll give them free stuff and then, everything will be great. And you might be going, well, it's just a couple of cabinet ministers. I mean, how much can it hurt? Let's not forget that Ramaphosa came in saying that he would reduce the size of the bloated state. And then all he did is expand the number of deputy presidents, the number of deputy generals, the number of ministers. I think he cut by 2, but hey, who cares? Because he gave every single one of them a deputy. And so the actual number of ministers now are astronomical. And so the estimated cost that this would have had to the taxpayer is 87 million a year.
But I think you're missing something very important. Remember when Pule Mabe, we made a video about this, where they can't pay salaries at Lutuli House. So Pule says, oh, well, what we're going to do is going to make the taxpayer pay for ANC staffers.
Yeah.
This was that attempt, where now a minister can have 15 aides that can help them do their job properly instead of 5 or whatever it was beforehand. And all of those 15 aides will need to be paid. So why can't he just redeploy people from the Tuli House to all the ministries? So you have the same employees, but now they're being funded by the taxpayer as opposed to the ANC. And even on that fundamental economic benefit to the ANC, Cyril has still flip-flopped. So you should respect him even less.
For me personally, I agree with you. I think this was an attempt by the ANC to get their staffers paid for. He has said on a number of times he will make sure that somehow the staffers get their salaries. This appears to have been the way that he thought he was going to get it done. But at the end of the day, I think he knows that the more burdens he puts on the taxpayer, the less likely they are to vote for the ANC. I think what he also tends to forget is something that we have mentioned on numerous occasions. You don't create laws for the people in government. You create laws for the future generations. And what this clown isn't really thinking about is, if you keep the ministerial handbooks at this status, like, what happens if the DA wins? That means all of the DA staffers are also getting paid, huh? Like, the DA can also go employ all of its staff members. So you got to think, like, is that what you want? And the answer from the ANC's perspective would be no.
The problem with you, Byron, is you're thinking like a business person. Politicians are in very short-term games at all times. It's all about, I'm out in 4 or 5 years. What can I do to maximize the profits from this? That's all it is. It's not about giving power to different people or what's going to happen if I leave. They don't give a shit at all. And for more on that, We'll be back right after this break. And we are back. And essentially, my view of all of this, and I will repeat it for the third time, Ramaphosa is weaker than ever before. If I were him, I would have stood by the ministerial handbook. I would have told everyone else to go jump off a bridge, because we know that the ministers having more perks increases Cyril's chance of winning the elective conference. But now that he's sidestepped that and made a U-turn on that, mate, it's just pathetic. And inculcates this idea that Cyril is about as useful as a waterproof teabag, I suppose.
I'm very happy to see it. And I'm really hoping that he doesn't win the elective conference. The only thing that's holding the ANC together in the eyes of the public is Ramaphosa, which is why he's U-turning. In the process of U-turning, even the public's looking at him going, you can't rely on this guy for anything. We've seen him flip-flop on nuclear power stations, on the second ESCOM, on cutting rates, raising rates, on the 500 billion that was never going to get stolen, that got stolen. You know, like, we've seen all of the flip-flopping. And so no one now listens to Ramaphosa and goes, I believe that guy. I believe that he has my best interests at heart. Because everybody knows, as Ramaphosa was very famous for having said,
I would rather be seen as the weak president than to split the ANC.
And he will now be seen as the president that not just split the ANC, but he killed South Africa along with it.
Yeah, and I'm not against any of that. But remember, Byron, he gave it his best shot, man. He gave it his best shot. And if that's your best shot, holy hell, imagine. Like, I have no words. That's the end. Thanks for watching.